Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me is Michael Weisz, co-founder and president of Yieldstreet, to discuss alternative investments and how they fit into investor portfolios. Michael, it's great to meet with you. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Hi, Jill. Thank you for having me.
You got it. And of course, this has been a pretty strong year for stocks, not as good for those in treasuries in a record low yield environment. How have alternative investments performed?
Well, Jeannie, despite the pandemic, it's been a great year for many other alternative investments. So many people are searching for yield in a record low yield environment for bonds, and there's too much volatility in the stock market. And so people are looking for a way to get more consistency in their returns and to generate some yield. Now, improved technology and data is opening up access and education on platforms like Yieldstreet, where people can finally get a view into the world of alternatives. Now, we're also seeing expanded access through the evolution of regulatory guidelines, such as allowing people to use IRAs for investing in alternatives. So Yieldstreet actually just had an incredibly strong Q3. To give you a sense, the number of first-time investors is up 65% in the second half of 2020 from the same period a year ago.
Yeah, it really is quite remarkable, just the growth that you're seeing within the marketplace. So let's learn a little bit about Yieldstreet, a 5-year-old company based in New York, and you offer investment opportunities in a broad range of alternative asset classes. Tell us a little bit more about Yieldstreet.
Sure. So Yieldstreet is a digital wealth management platform that provides access to a range of alternative investments to retail investors, both accredited and non-accredited. Now, we offer investment opportunities primarily in asset-backed loans. So think about real estate, private business credit, art finance, legal finance, and marine that people can now access either on their mobile device or on their computer. Now, these investments have historically been only accessible to some of the wealthiest individuals or institutions, but because of platforms like Yieldstreet leveraging new regulation, technology, and data, we are able to bring those directly to consumers. So my partner, Milind Mihir, and I started Yieldstreet about 5 years ago with a mission to provide more inclusive access to investments that were previously inaccessible to other people. Now, Yieldstreet's mission is in 5 years from now, I want to be able to make $3 billion of income to 5 million or more people outside of the traditional markets.
Michael, did you say marine as a vertical for alternative investment? Did I hear you correctly?
Yes, you did.
What is marine? Tell us about that.
So think about it, 98% of the goods that move around the world are moved through ships. And so shipping has been an enormous business, probably dating back as one of the oldest businesses out there. And historically, really accredited investors, retail investors have never been able to access that. It's been some of your biggest hedge funds and institutions. And so now people can access that through platforms like Yieldstreet.
Interesting. So how do you see 2021 shaping up for alternative investing?
So personally, I'm really excited about 2021. I think it's going to be an even stronger year than 2020 and 2019. So just to give you a couple of ideas as to why now in general, looking ahead, I feel the traditional 60-40 is probably not going to be the best solution for portfolio construction as people have looked at it in the past. Now, equity markets are trading at or near some of their highest valuations and have become increasingly more volatile. And you're seeing that huge daily, weekly swings. And so you also have 10-year treasury lows. You have it becoming more and more difficult for people to access yield and asset appreciation. And so they're looking for other ways to invest their capital and to find consistency in their returns. And so when you think about alternatives more broadly, it's giving people a capability to earn consistent passive income where historically they have not been able to. I'm going to add one more notch on top of that. Because of coronavirus and because of the pandemic, the traditional banks and people that were financing alternatives, a lot of them have shied away. And so they're dealing with their own issues in their portfolio as a result of all the business closures around the country. That has given alternative players a leg up in the ability to access better quality investments with better yields. And so at Yieldstreet and other sort of companies that I speak to and founders and investment officers, we're seeing better quality, more flow, and better return profiles. So I'm very, very bullish on 2021. So we put a list of top 10 trends that we see for next year in alts. I'll name a couple of them to you. So there's two ways to think about it. One is the more traditional assets, and two are the ones that have been deeply affected by COVID. There's going to be a rebound. So think about aviation, think about hospitality. Who is going to be part of that story of rebuilding these businesses? We want Yieldstreet and the retail investors to be part of that, not just the institutional world. Think of litigation finance. In the aftermath and the lasting effects of COVID, the legal industry, coupled with the legal finance firms, are expecting a substantial increase Number one, because companies are going to be looking to save money on their balance sheet and maybe share some of that risk with financiers. And number two, all the litigation that's going to come out of COVID. Then you have commercial real estate opportunities. Think of corporate debt. There are defaults, there are downgrades, there are opportunities for alt investors and managers to really be a part, again, of that story of rebuilding America. And we want retail investors to be part of that.
And Michael, to wrap up here, for people thinking about adding alternative investments to their portfolios, what would your best advice be?
So listen, I think the first thing everybody's got to understand is, although we as an industry collectively in the alt space has done really well, just like any other investment, alt doesn't come without risk. Number two, think about diversification. It's critical. You have to be able to go into the alt space like you would any other, diversify your portfolio, and try and identify different risk across yield, duration, asset manager, and asset class that you could build a healthy portfolio. And the thing I always say is you got to understand the investments you're going into. If something seems too complex for you, just wait for the next deal. And so look to platforms like Yieldstreet and others that are making the information consumable and understandable and accessible to you at the right sizing. And this way, you'll be able to invest in a healthy, diversified portfolio.
All right, Michael, appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.